Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Send it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Potter right in, and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get it to it. Score!
The zone. Coyle dances in. Backhand score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host this week, Karoline with a K, and I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Maria from Watertown. Hey, Maria, how's it going?
Good morning. Things are going well here, although it's feeling a bit like flipping winter right now. I am like on the edge of turning my heat on, but I'm trying to avoid it.
I know. I use that electric blanket all the time now. But I love it because then it's cozy and it feels like actual hockey season.
It is hockey season for sure.
Now, today is Monday, the 27th. By the time you hear this, Bruins will have already played a game. But I want to actually go back in time briefly and say that you had a good weekend because you were on Morning Brew on Saturday and got to ask a couple of really good questions, and we're going to get to some more in-depth part of those questions. So if you haven't heard her questions, you should definitely check it out. But first, we're just going to set the table and talk about what's going on in the world of the Boston Bruins. The Bruins put Hampus Lindholm officially on IR with a 10-9 injury date and have also recalled Jonathan Aspero. He has appeared in 5 games with the P Bruins this season, recording a goal and an assist for 3 points. He's played in the past for the Calgary Wranglers, and we're going to see if we actually get to see him perform over the next week. They've put Hampus on IR so that way they can effectively carry a full roster of 23 players who can actually play, and then allows them to maintain Lindholm as a member of the rostered team, but doesn't technically put them over the max 23 players because they backdated it to the 9th. When you go on IR, that's indicating that your player will be out for 7 calendar days. Obviously, it's been more than 7 calendar days. So this basically means he's still day-to-day, but I don't know, hedging their bets. They're traveling for a day, so maybe they want to make sure they have an extra guy. But what was your impression in seeing that news that they put him on IR?
Well, as you alluded to earlier, called into the Morning Brew, they have a regular, in addition to their podcast, they have a regular radio show now that they do on Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. in our area here. And I asked Billy and Razor a couple of questions, one of which was specific to Hampus Lindholm in that, did the Bruins make a mistake in letting Hampus play 1 game on the road only to see that whatever injury recovery have to be extended now where they needed to put him on IR. He's apparently been skating on his own, but now I don't know who's being cautious now. Yeah. Is it the organization saying to the player, look, we're not going to let you go until we know you're 100%, regardless of what you tell us? Or is it the player now saying, now I want to wait until I'm 100% because I don't want any setbacks. And I know this is Monday morning quarterbacking, but given how that road trip ultimately ended up, was it even of any value to have him play that 1 game only to see, because we keep referring to winnable games. A lot of these games in this losing streak that they had were winnable games. Could they have some of those games if we had just waited and Hampus was healthier. I don't know. I'm just asking the question, right?
Yeah.
The response that I received from Billy Jaffe was if the player tells you that they're good to go and they're ready to go, you have to somewhat rely on that to some degree. So I don't know. I'm just frustrated by this, how extended this injury seems to be becoming, and the fact that he's out of the lineup.
Yeah, I understand and I can respect the whole idea of you have to listen to the player knows their body. Sure, 100%. However, how often do you hear a player say that and they're not being necessarily honest with themselves? It is the early part of the season, so maybe he genuinely thought it wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe it was fine. Maybe he was ignoring signs. Any of the above could be true, and we just don't know. And it is frustrating to look back and say, gee, if only this happened, would we be in a different situation? Now, having seen, and we're going to get into it, what the defense has done or not done over the last few games, would he have even really truly made that much of a difference? Maybe not. Some of the sins committed were pretty atrocious, and not necessarily by the person who was put on the roster to replace him, right? It wasn't Harris who did this or Callahan who did some
No,
of
Michael
the worst of these
Callahan
things.
he's played decently. And
Again,
there's a reason why their power play seems not successful during these games either.
Yes, that could certainly be from more of that offensive side because, again, he is such a good two-way player. But even just from a defensive perspective and those particular issues that we have discussed over the last week in our snapshots, I'm not 100% convinced that he could have necessarily prevented some of the worst issues that we saw pop up. But we'll get into those in a little bit. So let's take a really quick spin around the rink. Some news of things that are happening. Surprisingly, not a ton of news for this particular week at this time. In divisional news, Patrik Laine is out for 3 to 4 months for the Habs, and he's one
This
that
guy can't catch a break.
He's had a lot of bad luck when it comes to his physical health, and to be out 3 to 4 months.
And it's not just weeks. These are like months long injuries, which is it's got to be frustrating for any player, particularly a player of, Patrik Laine's caliber, who is clearly a leader on that team, and he's been setting the tone for a young Canadiens team that is playing surprisingly decent hockey right now.
They've been really trying to capitalize on the momentum that they had from the end of last season going into the postseason, and they did a really good job. And, I'll give respect and props and sig taps to any team when you have to say, like, they've been coming up from the basement. But we want the Habs to do
We
well.
we are no longer in a position where we can look down at the likes of the Montreal Canadiens or the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah.
But also, it just makes for good hockey. We want to see the Habs be a good competitive team because of that deep history. We want to see them in competitive games. We want to see them in the playoffs. That hopefully that means that Boston would have the opportunity to play against them. So some of it is also self-serving. So to see them lose a pretty significant player kind of at I'm not going to say it's a critical junction, but it's not great timing for them. So hopefully they will be able to figure out how to keep going, because basically they're going to be without him until after the Olympic break. And that's really when it might be make or break time for them, depending on how they go for the next 6 weeks or so. But the day that this episode airs is actually Tuesday, the 28th, and that is officially a Frozen Frenzy day. So very exciting. Make sure you tune in. Every team is playing. it should be a good time. It usually is a well-produced, entertaining day of hockey, although I don't know how they're going to squeeze all of these games in.
Well, again,
On a
we
Tuesday.
talk about the NHL not being able to get out of their own freaking way, but why wouldn't you do this on a weekend? You're trying to grow the game, right? So I know they're going to have staggered start times, but you could be doing this on a Saturday or potentially, and I know they're afraid of the NFL on a Sunday, and they're likely afraid of the NCAA and college football on a Saturday, but you're trying to grow the sport, and you can have a bunch of staggered games in the afternoon where you can say to your kiddos, hey, come on, sit down, grab a bowl of popcorn. We're going to watch some good hockey today.
Instead, the schedule starts. I'm looking at it right now on my phone. The first games begin at 6:00. There are 2 games at 6, which is kind of weird because there's not a 6:15 start.
So
But
much for
effectively-
staggered times, right? To
But
me,
from
that
there,
6:00 and 6:00 is the same time, right?
I don't know why one of them wasn't 6:15, but because then there's a 6:30, a 6:45, 7. The Bruins play at 7:15, so on and so forth. So
These are tea times, right? We've got
Yeah.
that little window in between with the tea times, but I'm a little perplexed as to why those first 2 games started exactly the same time, but what the hell do we know?
whatever. So we'll be probably bouncing around ourselves just to keep an eye on all the different games because that piece is entertaining for sure. Some other news around the rink this past weekend during an intermission report, Elliot Friedman announced some interest in Pavel Zacha from the Canucks organization, and we've been hearing a lot of other talking heads then take that and run with it. Personally, I get a little bit irritated when there's just a tidbit of information out there from a very reliable source. I'm not questioning or doubting anything that Friedge has to say. And in fact, he's probably the only one that I completely trust when it comes to any kind of rumors or news. I won't listen to anything anyone else has to say. And that was effectively all that he had said was they're really interested in him, which again, why wouldn't they be? He's got a point per game, or he's been doing very well this season. His cap, very low, great bargain price, especially again as the cap continues to rise. But what kind of drives me bonkers, and I don't know if you kind of feel similarly, is when that kind of rumor gets just taken and they run with it and they go on and on and on without offering any kind of then, what are we going to get for it?
Right.
If you want to talk about it ad nauseum, you think you know what you're talking about, then give us your opinion on who would we get for it. Because I tell you what, the Bruins better not be considering a trade for him if it's for picks. No, thank you. I'm not interested in hypothetical people at this time when things aren't awesome, but I know what I'm getting with Zacha. I know what I'm getting with Casey Middlestat. And it's October 27th. What? This is fine if that's eventually a conversation for March. But we allow this season to breathe and happen a little bit too. I don't know.
Well, and I just wonder how much of it is, struggles from the Bruins management perspective. Some of the hideousness that have been subjected to in recent games and the difficulty and, fact that you have players saying or a coach saying, people aren't buying in, everyone's buying in. So I just wonder if how much of it is a sense of dread or alarm on the part of Bruins management.
Yeah.
To this isn't what we were expecting to see. Right? Out of this when we put together this roster. So who knows? Yeah, you're going to, in fact, make a report like that. And we all know Elliot Friedman is very, very well connected. It would be nice. And I'm sure he's tried to do a little digging, would be the potential return. Right? Then you've got me interested. I just saw the report and I know there were conversations in the off season, but it sounded like the Bruins asking price might have been higher than anyone wanted to pay for the likes of Pavel Zacha. So, well, we'll see what comes of it. It's just interesting that this early in the season, you're already hearing some rumbling.
Yeah. Again, all that we have heard from Frege is that the Canucks have been the interested party going to Boston and saying, hey, we're interested. It's not one of those stories where it's Boston is actively shopping him around.
Right.
It could just be, again, a nothing story from Boston's perspective, because the Canucks are also kind of a bit of a quandary, I guess, themselves, their particular roster construction. So it'll be interesting to see come March. I wouldn't be surprised if those names are floated out, certainly. But again, it's the last week of October.
Yeah.
It's something I can chew on. Otherwise,
and it's not like the Vancouver Canucks are like a drain. Again, it's early in the season, but they have a 500 record. So
yeah. Part of me would speculate, and again, this is complete out of thin air for right now, this being Quinn Hughes's final year in his contract. He's effectively said, without saying, I want to see how this year goes. And if this year goes well, then I will resign. But if it seems like this team is going nowhere, I'm going to look to go someplace else, because he also is a player that I think certainly would be robbed of a Stanley Cup if by the time he retires, his name isn't on one. So I think they're probably trying to hedge their bets and do anything that they possibly can to make sure that they are more than a 500 team in order to re-sign their captain. But we don't have to worry about anything like that.
No, we do not.
And we had a couple of snapshots this week. So we know our immediate reaction to at least two of the three games. All three, quite frankly, left me with very different feelings. It was a week of emotions and feelings for sure that were all very, very different. 21st, last Tuesday, Marshy came home. I felt horrible watching it. I felt like I was punched in the chest. Kid was crying on the couch. I'm getting teary-eyed. Sucked in more than one way. Maria, walk us through kind of your thoughts were on that game, and how did you feel?
It's frustrating for us as fans and followers of the Boston Bruins when we were really frustrated, aggravated, annoyed, disgusted when the trade was first announced. I'm not saying that I'm softening on my frustration with management, but hearing Brad Marchand speak very openly and honestly in interviews, a couple of interviews that he did, about the fact that he might have allowed himself to get too emotional during the negotiations, right? When you're looking to finish your career where you started it and you believe that you have a certain worth and value to the organization that you gave your blood, sweat, and tears to, and the feeling is not reciprocated or returned, and you may forget that it is a business, right? And you let those feelings maybe get the better of you. So as much as I wanted to crucify, and I did, management, there is something to the fact that because they couldn't get beyond the emotional aspect of the negotiations, that they did do right by him in allowing him and letting him go where he wanted to go and where he had another opportunity to put his name on the Stanley Cup, right? But it doesn't, to me, seem also to not erase the frustration, because he clearly can still play, right? He made his voice heard on the ice in that game, and he continues to make his voice heard as a member of that Florida Panthers organization. So, to me, is aggravating. And listen, being a softie too, we've had many instances in and around the Boston region of, Hall of Fame players walk away and not finish their career here in Boston. And there's nothing more freaking aggravating to those of us that follow these teams. And I'm, to the likes of like Brady, which was a fiasco. He should have never been in a Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniform, right?
Yeah.
I would have never thought that Brad Marchand would be in any other jersey, let alone a Florida Panthers jersey.
Mhm.
So to me, the fact that you can't find a way to bridge the gap so that caliber of players, I'm not saying everybody, but there are certain calibers of players you say started their career here, they should freaking end their career here. So that's my frustration. Bruins organization did a great job with the tribute. He clearly was emotional being here. He showed us what we miss on the ice.
I agree. 3 minutes standing ovation. 3 minutes. I think if there were, for some reason, any doubt in his mind of how Boston fans, the Bruins community, feel about him and how they felt about what happened, if there was any doubt in his mind, all of that was resolved that night. And, in spite of everything, emotions being high, I think that Bruins management isn't necessarily totally stupid in the sense that they knew they had to do this the right way and to the best of their abilities, because they know if they didn't explicitly screw up with this, know that they really angered the fan base.
Of course they do. No, of course they do. But I wonder if they care.
Well, that's a
I just wonder if they care.
So, there's no question in my mind that it was going to be a fantastic tribute, and that was a little bit, not that I was worried that the fans wouldn't show him respect and adulation. What I really was hoping for was that it would be so abundantly clear to him that none of us wanted this. All of us were against it. We're happy that he got his cup, but we're still mad that he's not here. And they more than delivered. They 100%.
Oh, no, I had no qualms about that whatsoever. In the Bruins fan base, we are all highly opinionated, highly emotional, sometimes a little too much so, but we certainly know and understand the value and certain players have given to the franchise. So I had no doubts that would not be provided with the appreciation and the applaud that he deserved for all of the years. Memories, like were there some disappointments? Of course they were. Were they all on him alone? No, they were not. But there's still no denying the fact that this guy bled black and gold from the time he joined the organization.
Yeah.
He's going to be in the record books for a long time.
Absolutely. And hopefully by the time he is done playing and he is retired, whatever conflict and all the emotional things that came out of that, hopefully that is water under the bridge and that he is appropriately honored and respected. The Bruins organization. By that, I mean retiring his number and giving him.
No, I find that his number should go up there at some point in time, I would think.
So the other thing that was really about this particular game was the fact that they went 1 for 5 on the power play. You obviously expressed your for that statistic when we had our snapshot. Then, of course, the issue that doesn't seem to be going away year over year, which is a team then coming right back and scoring right after a significant goal, whether it's to tie it up or to take the lead. It happened again this game, and it's already happened more than once this season. And again, we are still in that first month. So
you can't, I don't understand how it's going to take to hammer home the message. You can't take your goddamn foot off the gas. You can't think that just because you got a goal and went ahead, that is going to sustain you in the National Hockey League. It is so goddamn frustrating. And it doesn't matter who the coach is. We still see this happening.
Yes.
And giving up goals late in a period. And you know what? I don't care that it was a bad bounce. I don't freaking care that it was a bad bounce and it went off Peake's foot or McAvoy's shoulder or however the hell it hits. Okay?
Yeah.
Still can't give the team the scoring opportunity. If you're going to tell me that you're going to be a team that prides itself on a sound defensive structure, you had better show me where that goddamn structure is, because I don't understand it, because I don't see it.
Yeah. It's beyond frustrating, and I can't even imagine how the goaltenders feel, because both of them have done their job at minimum. Talk a little bit about Jeremy Swayman and the game against the Colorado Avalanche, because in that particular instance, he was beyond excellent.
That game
but even
might have been the one game so far this season. I don't know how many we played, not a lot.
Yeah.
The game so far this season where you could say, oh, I think that's what they're talking about when they talk about defensive structure. I think. I'm still not sure, but I think.
Yeah. In all of these games, and we've talked about this before, in snapshots and in other episodes, again, it's got to be really frustrating being the goaltender, because you're effectively doing your job. You might not be necessarily standing on your head, but as a goaltender, you don't have to stand on your head every game. You have to give your team the opportunity to stay in it, and then it's on the skaters to actually stay in it. So that was another game where it was really the skaters out front were really just not doing it. It was also the game that really showed a lot of the issues that Mason Lohrei is having. And he's kind of a bit of a conundrum, because I used to say this a lot about Matt Grzelcyk, where it's feast or famine. This kid, Mason Lohrei, can score goals. He scored a goal. I believe it was that game, or it was against the Ducks from
I think it
the
was
blue
against
line.
the Ducks. Yeah, I know. I think
And
it was
he
against the
has
Ducks.
a lot of times he's got and he can.
He had 3 assists in the game against the Avs on Saturday afternoon.
But
the issue is he is a defenseman and needs to learn how to play some defense. And I don't know. It seems to be a little bit of regression going on here with this player.
Yeah. And I would love to be a fly on the wall and understand his relationship with Charlie McAvoy, because to segue into the complete circus disaster that was the Anaheim Ducks game, watching the two of them was like a clip from the Benny Hill show, where they are running around in completely the wrong place.
Right.
Being Chucky pointing
total
to
disarray. No,
all right,
total
like
disarray.
go there, but
call it what it is. They were a shit show. They weren't the only ones, but watching them specifically together, an unmitigated shit show. There doesn't seem to be any type of communication or understanding or anticipation of, I'm going here, then I got to go there. Or that game against Anaheim was embarrassing, frustrating, aggravating, a black eye to me on the team. A total black eye from top to bottom. And, Geeky said it was an embarrassment. Corpusalo said it was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
You heard the Boo Birds coming out in the arena for that game. They deserve. I'm sorry. I'm not a booer. You want to boo? That's your choice. But there are times where you want to say, you deserve to be booed. You deserve to be booed.
It was such a joke. And for me, I think, again, this one particular goal and one particular moment that just so sticks in my mind. Again, United is in hockey and they're all on her team. They are learning positional play, and this is where you have to be, and this is what your job is. And it dawned on me the other day why I felt like this game was such a joke was because even at the squirt level, they are teaching the kids, okay, you're a defenseman. You have to pretend that the ice is split in half from goal crease, and you have to be your area. And obviously at the NHL level, that's not like a hard and fast rule. You are allowed to cross the invisible line. However, you should never see two defensemen on the same side, both below the goal line. Never. What? And they didn't know where to be. They were like, oh, I don't know where to go. Speechless. I am speechless that I witnessed that live because the kids on my kids' team are more aware of where they need to be than those two were in that moment. I was stunned.
And it just wasn't on them. Watching some of the sequences of that Anaheim Ducks game, which the Bruins lost 7-5 in just, Boston Bruins friggin' fashion. But even watching the forwards in our own zone,
dropping sticks,
standing around, like, anyone got a back check here? Seemed in a couple of sequences like looked lost and no understanding of what they were supposed to do, which begs another question to the guys on Morning Brew. Is this defensive structure too complicated? Is it not being coached appropriately? Or are guys not buying in? Or is it all of the above? Because watching that, nothing pisses me off more when I watch a hockey game, and I don't really care what level it is, and you're standing there and you're not moving your feet and you're stationary. What in hell do you think you're going to accomplish by not moving?
Right. No. And on the flip side, if you have an opposing player coming out of their defensive zone along the boards, can you please explain to me why then the defenseman is not throwing a check to stop this player?
That story for a different day. Okay, again,
he has the puck. You have a body.
Made commentary to this regard about Charlie McAvoy. I also asked the Morning Brew guys, what do you think about Charlie Mack's game to start the season? I'm not impressed. Their response was, yeah, he needs to be better. Of course he does. But like, what is happening here? Like, you see what's going on in particular games, okay? Now, to me, a guy like Charlie McAvoy, right? And to some degree, Nikita Zadorov, he's done his share of this, okay? You'll be able to make a play or throw a clean hit that can change the momentum of the game, right? You don't think your guys would get psyched up when you throw a clean body check that you rock somebody? Like, not all on him. But these are the things to me. If you're going to profess yourself or be anointed as a leader on a team, those are the things that I expect to see from you.
Yes. 100%. And that was just beyond frustrating because that entire game seemed like just chaos, not in a fun way. And no disrespect to the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of people online have been saying, oh my God, it's the Ducks. It's the Ducks. If you pay attention, Ducks have been working really hard for the last couple of seasons. They're on their way up. And
but still,
you be paying attention.
Right. But when you compare and contrast the rosters, right, you should be able to beat them.
Yeah.
The Florida game was a winnable game. How many times have we said that already in this young season?
Both of those
winnable games that they let their opponents off the freaking hook.
Yes.
Off
And
the hook.
And the fact that in the Ducks game, Radko Gudas left the game, arguably their greatest physical threat out on the ice, and they couldn't stop these kids.
And we all said in our Discord, I think I was the first one to say, let's see if the Bruins can take advantage of the team on the road who now only plays with 5 defensemen.
Yeah.
That was, and no, we have alluded to this, there will be pain points this season, right? However, when you see a team that self-inflicts their own wounds in games that are winnable, that to me, if it's aggravating to those of us who are watching the game, how frustrating and aggravating must it be to the coaching staff who's prepared the team for their opponent? Now, I know that now other teams are seeing and looking at game film and they can maybe find Bruins weaknesses, but you also have to be aware of that as Boston Bruins, right? And have a plan B for how you're going to counter that.
Yeah, 100%. 2 games that they lost that were completely winnable. Going into Saturday's matinee, that they were basically getting to a point where it was, you gotta win, like, no question whatsoever, a must win. And of course, they were up against one of the top teams in the league. So kudos to them for, winning that game. But going into that game, I think with right attitude and recognizing that this is going to be hard on a lot of different levels, but not a game to roll over and a game that must be kept tidy. Flowing through on everything, doing their jobs as they're supposed to, not once letting up gas. And they did. I will say the game, I thought, started out kind of boring. I was also cozy on the couch and a little bit sleepy. So it was a little slow for me to start, but then it really got going. And Jeremy Swayman,
games have a tendency, I think, to do that to both teams, especially the Bruins. They've never come out, for as long as I can remember in recent years, they've never come out like gangbusters in a matinee game at TD Garden. I don't understand why that is. I don't know if it's because the routine is different, whatever, but always a slow start, sleepy start for the Bruins in a matinee game.
Yes. Well, but Jeremy Swayman didn't start off slowly, and he stood on his head. He was absolutely phenomenal in that game. He more than made up for any and all potential past issues that he's had this season. And he well-deserved #1 star of that particular game. The biggest takeaway from this game was the fact that Harris was out. He's on IR. Not 100% sure what has happened on that end. They had to call up Callahan. And in addition to this new defenseman on the roster, they shook up the pairings. So what was your take on Dorov and McAvoy, Lohrei, Peak, Callahan, Jokiharju?
Thank God they split up.
Yeah.
Right, and McAvoy. I think it was a benefit to both of those players. However, because we're recording now on Monday, a little bit of real time, I'm just looking at a post about the Bruins practice lines for today, which is Monday. They have a game against the Senators this evening. And it looks like Lohrei and McAvoy are back together again. So I'm not quite sure why. Thought that was a good call to split them up. Now, I understand you don't want to have Zadorov and McAvoy together all the time, right?
Sure.
Because, again, they're both physical defensemen, and it's nice to maybe kind of able to offset that with another pairing. But McAvoy and Lori together just doesn't do it for me anymore. All right. We'll see what happens in tonight's game. But for the game that we're talking about on Saturday, it was a good call. I think Callahan has been a steady, right? Yokoharu has been steady Betty. Peak is a pretty solid stay-at-home defenseman.
Yeah,
It makes sense that you have Lori with him because you do want to take advantage of Lori's offensive abilities as a defenseman and maybe minimize the damage. But Lori and McAvoy together, like much damage on that pairing. So I'm not quite sure why that's changed when you had success with it on Saturday afternoon. I don't know if that's due to the opponent that you're facing in the Ottawa Senators tonight, who, by the way, are without Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah.
Good move by the coaching staff. It came through, but I think of the embarrassment of the game against the Ducks and your own fans booing you. I think everyone was ready, locked, and loaded to go against that game and did not want another potential winnable game to get away from them without at least securing and stop the losing streak.
Stop the
which was one of the longest in Bruins history for a long time. 6 losses in a row. I don't know when the last time that happened either.
Yeah, been great. The splitting up was beneficial for both parties because you saw that Lori had a lot of offensive opportunities. Again, he had the 3 assists. That's great. Good for him. That means it's trending him in the direction that we want him to be in the plus-minus world. Recovering.
And Morgan Geeky's heating up, which is a great sign.
Yep.
Morgan Geeky is heating up for the Bruins, which is that's really huge. Arvidsson got his first goal as a Bruin. Hopefully many more to come. I hope that will kind of to relax a little bit and not be so tight on the stick and, start contributing offensively.
It was great to see that Boston and Chucky in particular really did a good job of neutralizing Nathan MacKinnon because they allowed him to completely walk all over this team when they played against them in Colorado. And we have seen slowly but surely with each game since the road trips, the number of penalties that Boston has been taking has been declining. And actually, I believe Colorado was pretty frequently in and out of the box at Garden, and Boston was not. So that was just nice to see, again, a reaction from your defensemen, a little bit of extracurriculars. Like, you want to go too far that it causes damage, but you want to see that they care and they're doing anything and everything that they can to.
And you bring up a good point about McAvoy doing a good job on MacKinnon. And I wonder if that was part of the strategy in splitting up McAvoy and Lori so that McAvoy could focus on
just him,
the job, and not have to worry about Lori around or play where he's not supposed to be making a play type of thing. And Chucky feeling like he's got to do more to compensate for that. I don't know. Who knows? That could be why maybe they're back together in practice before tonight's game against Monday night's game against Ottawa. But whatever the rationale was, it was beneficial. It secured a much needed 2 points for the Bruins, and they won a game against a really, really good team.
Yeah, exactly. So, hand out our stick taps. And I will say the very first stick tap that I want to actually hand out is to one of our sponsors this week, oldglory.com. They have some pretty iconic music and sports fan merchandise. And if you head over to their website and you use the discount code TAPE2TAPE, that's TAPE, TOTAPE, at checkout, you'll get 15% off. And we get a little something as well. If a sale gets made, we'll get to benefit the podcast. So head on over there. They've got some really interesting and unique shirts. It's Halloween time, so you're not the type to want to totally go out and have some crazy Halloween costume and you like to keep it low key. You can go and check out some really fun t-shirts there. They've got an awesome Minions one. You can go dressed as candy corn and not look like a total lunatic out there. But also some really great unique Bruins merchandise. So they've got phone cases and really vintage looking shirts there. So go check them out. Use our promo code for 15% off. And then you ultimately support the podcast because we get a little something in return. So
we appreciate the support, folks.
So also, who else is on our Stig Taps list for this week?
I put, to me, Victor Arvidsson gets a Stig Tap,
Yes.
getting his first as a Bruin. I think he's been working, to me. Seems to be working hard.
Close.
He's been close. He's not afraid to shoot, which is refreshing based on Bruins teams. And I hope that will open up the door. And getting a few more. And to me, I still think Nikita Zadorov is been playing really, really well for this team. Who would have thunk it, right? I would have thunk it. And he's taken a lot of grief because of his contract. And I want to remind people, because that's really easy for us to use as an excuse. However, management is the one that offers said players these contracts. And I understand that players should live up to those contracts. But let's not like players under the bus or give them shit for, that management is a part of negotiating with them on. So I'm glad to see that he's made some changes to his game, right? He's staying out of the penalty box. He is being aggressive within the laws of the NHL, right?
Mm-hmm.
He works hard. He's been doing his job consistently.
Yeah, absolutely has. And of course, the last one being Jeremy Swayman. I mean, the $8 million man that we love.
We need that guy.
We need that guy
that we saw in the game against the Avs. That is the guy we need to see with each and every one of his starts.
Mm-hmm.
That because we're already starting to hear a little bit of that in this market area.
Yep.
Oh, you're make a save. Oh, you're $8 million goalie. Oh, you're $8 million. Okay, got it. We understand. Yes, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
And so the expectation and the standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's put that on himself as well. So yes, Jeremy, that's what we need to see from you, how you played and the stops that you made in that game against Colorado consistently.
Yes. Amen. Penalty box. We're going to run out of room in this box, basically, at this point. Deep as a whole, guys, get your shit together. This has been just horrible. It's hemorrhaging.
I need to see more out of Charlie McAvoy. You talk about a guy who you want to throw someone's contract in their face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but okay, making $9 million,
Right.
get your head out of your ass and start playing like an elite defenseman in this league.
Yeah.
Okay.
Power play again has been struggling again. We have had some conversion. Okay. Again, as a recheck on our expectations, understanding the fact that, my God, we went how many games without scoring a power play goal? So we did go 1 for 5, but we want to see more, especially considering offense is not really the problem right now. So it would be nice to see them do a little bit more because if you're getting the opportunities, you have to. Like, it's at this point, as long as the defense is being Swiss cheese, you gotta then rack up 10 goals if you have a chance of winning 10-9.
Here's to become a viable team in the league where you will get some credit from not only fans, but other teams.
Yeah.
You got 5 power play opportunities in the game against the Florida Panthers. You only converted on one of those. That was a 1-goal game.
Yeah.
If you were able to convert on let's say a minimum of one more. Okay. And that's sake of being greedy, two more. That's how you put your freaking opponents away.
Yes.
Okay. That's how you put your opponents away. You can ill afford to let a team such as the Florida Panthers, who give you 5 power play opportunities and you only convert on one. I'm sorry. You're not going to be talked about as a good team if you can't capitalize on the opportunities or the mistakes of your opponents.
Yeah, 100%. That's key. And there are a lot of little things or seemingly little things that they could be tweaking and adjusting and adapting, and that could have a pretty big impact. And one of them. And I'm not hopeless because, again, we've seen a lot of really great changes from their new assistant coach in charge of the power play. Certainly a much better product out on the ice than we have seen in the past, but just got to keep moving in a positive direction in that case. And the last thing, of course, is losing these winnable games. I mean, it goes without saying, it's unacceptable and they can't allow it. So, let's just take a real quick look at the schedule ahead because, again, we won't have a snapshot until a little later in this week when the Bruins are playing the Sabres the day before Halloween. So we've got the Senators. They're in Ottawa. Right now, the Sens are playing a tight checking, low scoring style of game. Might be considered a little boring. They don't generate a ton of chances and they don't allow
Isn't that what we're supposed to be playing too?
Yeah, right. We are not generating much and we're giving up a lot. So very low event and highly leaky defense. But then they come right back home. We're expecting sway Ottawa, right?
I haven't seen anything that says yet who the first goalie off the ice is because I might still be practicing. I don't know.
I would think so.
I
but
don't
then
know
again,
why my gut says maybe they're going to play Corpusalo in that game. The game
because
at Senators.
It kind of depends on who's cup. So they play Islanders, which I would think would be one or the other because it's back to back. So whoever plays tonight isn't playing tomorrow. And I would be Corpusalo against the Islanders. And they've had an interesting season for sure. They generate and give up a lot of chances. And they definitely have a high event run and gun style of play. So that could be another circus potentially.
Let's not forget that the Senators are without Brady Tkachuk, which is their, identity guy on that team. And
but
this is
Linus Ullmark.
Yeah, right. Scorbini team. I mean, they're in the Eastern Conference in the standings right now, but these conference games,
these games are huge. Yeah. So again, then they play the Sabres on Thursday, which the Sabres seem to have kind of.
Yes, they have.
But the next kind of really big game coming up for the Bruins is on the 1st against the Hurricanes. So regardless of what is going to happen with that Canes game, and they are a dynamic team. They've clearly had an excellent start to their season.
Yes, they have.
Regardless, but to me, Boston needs to then gather as many points as possible in the next 3 games in order to weather whatever kind of storm happens with the Hurricanes. Because you just don't know. And they're not in a position right now where I could say with any certainty that, they're going to win. Actually, they might get their asses handed to them. So let's get 6 points and call it a scheduled loss. I don't know.
I mean, I'm way ahead at this point, but your point is right, is that this is the time of the year where you should be putting points in the bank.
Yes.
Putting points in the bank as often as you can.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens as always. But any final thoughts, Maria, going into this week?
I just even have the words anymore right now to, and what I want to see from this team, right? I, for the most part, we've been seeing effort, right? And we've been giving them credit for effort, but effort doesn't equate to points, right? So now that effort needs to be transitioned into points. And when you get a lead to show me that you know how to protect said lead.
Maria, I don't even know what team is going to show up on the ice tonight, let alone any other night.
I know, but we shouldn't be surprised. We kind of, I think, the 3 games we were maybe all drinking a little too much of the Kool-Aid that might have been spiked with something in it. But I think this is the reality of what we thought the team would be, right? But nonetheless frustrating when you see games that are winnable that are being pissed away.
Yeah. Well, make sure you like and subscribe for more content, and be sure to leave a rating and review to help other Bruins fans find us. You can support the podcast by joining our Patreon or following us on our socials at Tape to Tape MK and on Substack at tapetotapemk.substack.com. And as always, go Bees!
Go Bees!